Hello and welcome to What F History. Today, we are embarking on a thought experiment that will challenge everything you think you know about one of the most beloved fictional worlds ever created. We all dreamed of getting that letter, of walking the halls of Hogwarts, of being the hero. But what if the wizarding world isn't the whimsical, morally clear-cut place we remember? What if, when faced with its deep-seated injustices, its systemic corruption, and its terrifying hypocrisy, you wouldn't become the hero? What if you, with your modern sensibilities and a clear-eyed view of power, would be far more likely to become the villain? Forget the chosen one. Forget Gryffindor bravery. Today, you are a Muggle-born. You have just been sorted into Slytherin, and your journey into darkness is about to begin. Not out of malice, but out of a cold, calculated, and perhaps even righteous fury. The moment the Sorting Hat screams, "Slytherin," a chill descends upon the Great Hall. You see the polite, strained smiles from the teacher's table. You see the open glares from the Gryffindor table, a sea of red and gold that has already judged you. You are 11 years old, and you have been thrust into a world you don't understand, only to be immediately branded with the mark of the enemy. You walk to the green and silver table, and the students there are not warm and welcoming. They are sizing you up. You are an outsider in a house of insiders, a Muggle-born in a den of pure bloods. This is not just a schoolhouse. This is your first lesson in the brutal politics of the wizarding world. Your primary identity is no longer your name. It is your house, and, more importantly, your blood. In the Slytherin common room, located deep beneath the Black Lake, you learn the language of this new world. You hear the word mudblood for the first time. It is not shouted, not at first. It is whispered, a venomous little secret passed between the children of Death Eaters. It is aimed at you. You, who just weeks ago were living a normal life, are now a racial slur made flesh. Your very existence is an insult to their ideology. You quickly realize that the fairy tale is over. This is a world rife with a deeply ingrained, almost feudal system of blood-based supremacy. The purebloods, those with an entirely magical lineage, sit at the top. Below them are the half-bloods. And at the very bottom are you, the mudbloods, the magical freaks born to mundane parents. Your first year is a trial by fire. You have no context for this world. You don't know about the Wizarding Wars. You don't know the names of the powerful families. You are a political and cultural blank slate. This, you soon discover, is your greatest advantage. While your pure-blood housemates are blinded by their inherited prejudices, and the other Muggle-borns are dazzled by the sheer spectacle of magic, you see the system for what it is. You see the casual cruelty, the unquestioned hierarchy, the rot beneath the gilded surface. You excel in your classes, not just because you are intelligent, but because you are desperate. For you, knowledge isn't a curiosity, it's a weapon. It is the only thing that can level the playing field. You study history, and you see that the wizarding world is not a peaceful society occasionally disrupted by a dark lord. It is a society built on a foundation of conflict and oppression. You read about the goblin rebellions, the persecution of giants, the marginalization of werewolves. You realize that Voldemort was not an anomaly. He was a symptom of a sickness that has festered for centuries. His pure-blood ideology was not a fringe belief. It was simply the most extreme expression of a prejudice that is quietly accepted by the mainstream. The Malfoys may be extremists, but even the Weasleys, the supposed paragons of good-natured wizardry, own a house elf and see it as perfectly normal. You see slavery, casual and accepted, woven into the fabric of their daily lives. This realization changes you. The initial awe you felt for magic is replaced by a cold, hard pragmatism. Magic is not a gift, it is power. And in a world this broken, power is the only thing that matters. You look at your fellow Slytherins. You see the brutish arrogance of Crabbe and Goyle, the sniveling ambition of Draco Malfoy. But you also see others. The quiet, intelligent ones who understand the game. The ones who know that their family name is both a shield and a cage. You learn to navigate their complex social hierarchies, to speak their language of veiled threats and subtle power plays. You don't try to befriend them. You work to be respected. or, failing that, to be feared. As you grow older, your disillusionment deepens. You see how the entire system is designed to maintain the status quo. The Ministry of Magic is a bloated, incompetent bureaucracy, riddled with corruption and prejudice. The Daily Prophet is not a source of news. It is a state propaganda machine, happy to smear a child's reputation one day and praise a corrupt minister the next. The entire society is insular, stagnant, and terrified of change. They are so insulated from the non-magical world that they still use quills and parchment, completely ignorant of the technological and social revolutions that have reshaped the planet. They are a relic, a beautiful, magical, dying thing. And you, the outsider, the mudblood, the Slytherin, you see a path that no one else does. The heroes of this world, the Gryffindors, believe in fighting for the system, in reforming it from within. They believe in the essential goodness of the ministry, in the wisdom of Dumbledore. You see this as a fool's errand. You cannot reform a system that is rotten to its foundations. You must tear it down and build something new in its place. This is the turning point. This is where the path to villainy truly begins. It is not a choice born of a desire for chaos or a lust for power for its own sake. It is a cold, logical conclusion. The world is broken. The people in charge are incapable of fixing it. The only way to create a just, equitable, and stable society is to seize control. You look at the dark arts, the forbidden magic, and you don't see pure evil. You see a set of tools that the establishment has deemed too dangerous, too effective, for anyone but themselves to wield. You see the Imperious Curse, the Cruciatus Curse, the Killing Curse, and you think not of cruelty, but of efficiency. Your ambition, the very quality that placed you in Slytherin, is now honed to a razor's edge. But it is not the petty ambition of Malfoy, who craves his father's approval. It is the grand, world-shaping ambition of a revolutionary. You will master the dark arts. You will gather allies from the dispossessed and the forgotten. You will build a power base. You will formulate an ideology that offers a real alternative, not the crude, racist dogma of Voldemort, but a new vision of a magical world based on merit, strength, and order. You will do terrible things. You will break laws. You will hurt people. But you will tell yourself, with a chilling and unshakable conviction, that it is all for the greater good. The heroes of this world want to save it. You have decided that in order to save it, you must first conquer it. Your years at Hogwarts are a masterclass in disillusionment. As you excel in your studies, particularly in defense against the dark arts and potions, you begin to look beyond the castle walls. You study the structure of this society you've been thrust into, applying a critical lens that your wizard-raised peers lack. You investigate their laws, their government, their justice system. And what you find is not a flawed but noble civilization. It's a barbaric regime hiding behind a thin veneer of civility. The centerpiece of this barbarism, the ultimate symbol of the Ministry of Magic's moral bankruptcy, is a place you only hear about in hushed, terrified whispers: Azkaban. You learn that Azkaban is not merely a prison. From a Muggle perspective, a prison is a place of confinement, of punishment, and ideally, of rehabilitation. Azkaban offers none of these. It is a fortress set on a bleak island in the North Sea, but its walls are not its most effective deterrent. The guards are. The guards are Dementors. You dig deeper, sourcing forbidden texts and questioning older Slytherin students whose families have a more intimate knowledge of the Ministry's dark secrets. You learn that Dementors are not guards in any sense you understand. They are non-human, soul-devouring parasites. They are creatures that feed on happiness, and their very presence drains a human being of every good feeling, every happy memory, leaving them with nothing but their worst experiences, their deepest traumas, playing on an endless, agonizing loop. This is the state's chosen method of incarceration. They don't just lock people away. They subject them to constant, unrelenting psychological torture, a fate that drives most inmates to insanity or suicide within a few years. And this is considered justice. This is the official, government-sanctioned policy of the good guys. You try to explain the concept of cruel and unusual punishment to one of your pure-blood classmates, and they just stare at you, uncomprehending. To them, criminals deserve it. There is no concept of universal human rights in the wizarding world. No understanding that even the guilty have a right to be treated with a basic measure of dignity. Then you learn the most horrifying truth of all: the Dementor's kiss. The ultimate punishment, reserved for the worst criminals, is to have your soul sucked from your body. You are left as a living, breathing, but empty shell. It is a fate worse than death. The state, the Ministry of Magic, has given itself the power to not just end a life, but to utterly annihilate a person's consciousness, their very being. With your 21st century understanding of morality, you are staggered. This isn't a justice system. This is a horror story. This is a government that employs soul-eating monsters as its enforcers. How can you possibly see them as the legitimate authority? Your conviction is hardened when you learn the truth about legal process in the wizarding world, or rather, the complete lack of it. You uncover the story of Sirius Black, a man accused of betraying his best friends to Voldemort and murdering a street full of muggles. He was a scion of a noble pureblood house, yet he was thrown into Azkaban without a trial. No evidence was presented, no defense was heard. The Ministry, under pressure to act, needed a scapegoat, and they condemned a man to 12 years of soul-crushing torment without even asking the basic questions. This isn't an anomaly, it's standard procedure. The Wizengamot, their highest court, is a political theatre, not a hall of justice. Trials are show trials, like the one you read about where Harry Potter himself was tried as a teenager, with the Minister of Magic acting as both prosecutor and judge, desperate to secure a guilty verdict for political reasons. You realize that your life, your very soul, is subject to the whims of corrupt bureaucrats who wield absolute power with no oversight and no accountability. If you were to be accused of a crime, you would have no right to a lawyer, no right to see the evidence against you, no right to a jury of your peers. You would be dragged before a council of prejudiced, politically motivated aristocrats and then handed over to the Dementors. This is the system you are expected to respect. This is the law you are expected to obey. It is an impossible demand. Any rational person, faced with such a system, would conclude that the only way to be safe is to be powerful enough to be above that system. As your cynicism towards the Ministry solidifies into cold contempt, you turn your analytical gaze to its greatest opponent, the man held up as the paragon of light and goodness, Albus Dumbledore. You, being in Slytherin, are naturally inclined to be suspicious of him. The Gryffindors worship him, but your house sees him as a biased, manipulative old fool. You decide to find out the truth for yourself. You spend your nights in the Slytherin library, a repository of texts darker and more honest than those in the main school library. You piece together the history, not the sanitized version from A History of Magic, but the real story. You uncover the truth of Dumbledore's youth, his passionate, intense friendship with the dark wizard Gellert Grindelwald. You find fragments of their letters, their shared philosophy. Their motto was not "defend the innocent" or "uphold justice." It was "for the greater good." You shudder as you read the words, because you understand the terrifying ideology they represent. Dumbledore and Grindelwald plan to lead a wizarding revolution, to overthrow the ministries of the world, and to establish a global benevolent dictatorship over Muggles. They believed that they, the wise and powerful, had the right and the duty to rule over the weak. They believed the ends justified the means. You realize that Dumbledore never truly abandoned this philosophy. He only changed his tactics. He turned against Grindelwald, not because he rejected the idea of manipulating the world for a perceived greater good, but because he saw the destructive potential of their methods, and, more personally, because it led to the death of his sister. His core belief that he knows what is best and has the right to orchestrate events and people to achieve his goals never wavered. He is not a gentle guide. He is a grand chess master. And everyone else on the board, from the Minister of Magic down to Harry Potter himself, is a pawn. You watch him operate, and you see the manipulation everywhere. You see how he uses Snape, a man trapped by his love for Lily Potter, turning him into a double agent in a war that will almost certainly kill him all, while dangling the protection of Lily's son as his reward. You see how he handles Harry Potter. He leaves an infant in an abusive home for a decade, knowing the Dursleys are cruel, all to shape the boy into a humble and pliable weapon. He withholds critical information from Harry at every turn, feeding him just enough to keep him moving in the right direction, never giving him the full picture that would allow him to make his own informed choices. You learn about the prophecy and come to the sickening realization that Dumbledore is raising Harry not to live, but to die at the proper moment. He is forging a child soldier and grooming him for martyrdom. This is the leader of the light, a man who manipulates children, who lies to his closest allies, who sees people as pieces to be sacrificed for his grand strategy. He operates in the shadows, accountable to no one, his actions justified by his own unassailable belief in his own wisdom. And you ask yourself, how is this fundamentally different from a Dark Lord? Voldemort uses fear and brute force to achieve his ends. Dumbledore uses love, loyalty, and carefully curated information. The methods are different, but the underlying arrogance, the belief that they have the right to control the lives of others for their own grand design, is exactly the same. You look at his followers, the Order of the Phoenix. They are not a noble army. They are a secret society, a vigilante militia operating outside the bounds of the law they claim to protect. They use spies, they conduct secret missions, and they engage in battles with the Death Eaters. They are, for all intents and purposes, a paramilitary organization. Once again, you have to ask, what separates them from the Death Eaters? Ideology? Both sides believe they are fighting for the future of the wizarding world. Both sides are willing to kill and die for their cause. The only real difference is that one side has better public relations. Now, your revolutionary worldview is complete. The official government is a corrupt and brutal regime. The official opposition is a manipulative cult of personality led by a man who believes the ends justify the means. There is no good side. There is no moral high ground to stand on. There are only competing factions fighting for power. In such a world, the concept of good and evil becomes meaningless. All that matters is strength, strategy, and the will to impose your vision on the world. This brings you to the final, terrifying piece of the puzzle: the dark arts. From your first day at Hogwarts, you are taught that they are the ultimate evil. They are forbidden, corrupting, and unnatural. But as a Slytherin, you have access to knowledge that others do not. You begin to study them, not with a desire for wanton cruelty, but with the cold, pragmatic eye of a revolutionary sizing up his arsenal. And you make a startling discovery. The dark arts are not defined by their evil nature. They are defined by their effectiveness. They are the magics that the establishment fears the most, and so they are the ones that have been forbidden. You start with the 3 unforgivable curses, the bedrock of dark magic. The penalty for using any of them is a life sentence in Azkaban. But you analyze them not as a wizard, but as a modern strategist. The Imperious Curse, the ability to control another's mind. A horrifying violation of free will, to be sure. But Dumbledore manipulates people into doing his bidding all the time. The Ministry uses propaganda and censorship to control the population. Is a spell that achieves the same result, only more directly and efficiently, really so much worse? For a revolutionary, the ability to place a key official under your control without anyone knowing could be the key to a bloodless coup. The Cruciatus Curse, the Torture Curse. It inflicts unbearable physical pain. It is monstrous. But you are fighting a war against fanatics, against people who use the killing curse as their signature spell. They have information you need to save lives, to win the war. In the Muggle world, governments have used torture for centuries to extract information, believing it to be a necessary evil. The Ministry itself uses Dementors, which inflict a far more profound and lasting form of torture. Again you ask, is the Cruciatus Curse evil in itself, or is it simply a tool, its morality defined by its purpose? Is it worse to inflict 5 minutes of pain on a captured enemy to learn the location of a planned attack than to allow hundreds of innocents to die? The cold, utilitarian logic is seductive. And finally, the Killing Curse, Avada Kedavra. the spell that is the ultimate taboo. It is the signature of Voldemort. But then you discover the ultimate hypocrisy. During the First War against Voldemort, the Ministry of Magic authorized its own auras to use the unforgivable curses, including the Killing Curse. The state gave itself the permission to kill without trial, to use the very magic they condemned as the pinnacle of evil. The mask is off. The dark arts are not evil because they are inherently immoral. They are evil because the Ministry has declared them to be. They are a monopoly on power that the state wants to keep for itself. You have seen the truth. The world is ruled by hypocrites and manipulators. Justice is a sham. The heroes are just as ruthless as the villains. And the most powerful weapons have been locked away, not because they are evil, but because they are effective. The choice becomes brutally clear. You cannot win a war by fighting with one hand tied behind your back. You cannot dismantle a corrupt system by obeying its rules. To win, you must be stronger, more ruthless, and more willing to do what is necessary than your enemies. You must embrace the power that they fear. You must master the dark arts. Your transformation is nearly complete. You are no longer just a disillusioned student. You are a philosopher of power, a strategist of revolution. You have a clear-eyed view of the world and your place in it. The only thing left is to act. You graduate from Hogwarts with top honors, a fact that both infuriates and impresses the wizarding establishment. You are a Muggle-born who has mastered their magic, a Slytherin who has outthought the Ravenclaws and outpowered the Gryffindors. You are an anomaly, and they don't know what to do with you. The Ministry offers you a low-level position, a token gesture to prove their supposed inclusivity. You accept it. It is the perfect place to begin. From within the belly of the beast, you can map its anatomy, learn its weaknesses, and identify its pressure points. Your first year in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures is an exercise in frustration and a source of invaluable intelligence. You see firsthand the bureaucratic contempt with which the Ministry treats every non-human magical being. The Centaur Liaison Office is an institutional joke. The Goblin Liaison Office is a hotbed of diplomatic insults and broken treaties. The laws governing werewolves are so restrictive, they essentially legislate a life of poverty and ostracism. You are not just seeing injustice anymore. You are documenting it, compiling a dossier of every grievance, every act of oppression, every systematic failure. This will become the foundation of your new ideology. While you play the part of a diligent, if overly ambitious, young bureaucrat, you begin your true work in the shadows. Your first recruits are not the hulking brutes of your Slytherin year, not the Crabbe and Goyle archetypes. You need thinkers, strategists, and influencers. You turn to the other Slytherins who, like you, saw the system's decay. You approach the quiet, intelligent purebloods from families who may not have the fame of the Malfoys, but possess ancient knowledge and deep-seated resentment for the Ministry's modern weakness. You don't speak to them of crude blood purity. That is Voldemort's failed, brutish ideology. You speak to them of a restoration of wizarding greatness, of a new world order based not on blood, but on merit and power. You create an inner circle, a cabal of the disillusioned. There is the scion of an old family whose wealth has dwindled, who resents the Ministry's high taxes and regulations. There is the brilliant witch who was passed over for a promotion in favor of a less qualified but better connected Gryffindor. There is the dueling champion who sees the Ministry's restrictions on certain magic as a foolish handicap in a dangerous world. You bind them together not with fear, but with a shared vision. A vision of a wizarding world, led by the most capable, the most ambitious, the most powerful, regardless of their last name or the purity of their blood. You, the Muggle-born, become the ultimate proof of this new principle. Your power is undeniable, and it validates the very core of your meritocratic ideology. With your inner circle established, providing you with funds, political cover, and access to their family libraries, you begin the next phase. Building your army. You know you cannot challenge the Ministry with a handful of disgruntled Slytherins. You need numbers, and you know exactly where to find them. Not among the wizards who are comfortable with the status quo, but among the creatures and beings that the wizarding world has crushed under its boot for centuries. You will not make Voldemort's mistake. He used these creatures as cannon fodder, as monsters to be unleashed. He promised them chaos. You will promise them something far more powerful: justice. Your first outreach is to the werewolves. You know the laws that bind them. They are required to register with the ministry, a list that is often accidentally leaked, making employment impossible. The key ingredient in the wolfsbane potion, which allows a werewolf to retain their human mind during transformation, is prohibitively expensive. The ministry does nothing to subsidize it. They have created a desperate, impoverished, and ghettoized population, and then they act surprised when that population turns to dark wizards for help. You arrange a meeting in secret, not with a few scattered individuals, but with an entire pack, led by a fearsome alpha who has seen the promises of both Dumbledore and Voldemort turn to ash. You don't approach them as a ministry official or a dark lord demanding fealty. You approach them as a fellow outcast. You speak to them of their plight, citing the very laws you've studied. You show them that you understand their suffering in a way no pampered pureblood ever could. Then you make your offer. It is simple, direct, and revolutionary. You tell them that in your new world order, lycanthropy will be reclassified. It will no longer be a mark of a half-beast, but recognized as what it is, a medical condition. You promise to divert a significant portion of your growing resources to the mass production and free distribution of the wolfsbane potion. You promise to repeal the registration laws and to enact new laws protecting werewolves from discrimination in employment and housing. You promise them not just a place at the table, but a seat on the council that will govern all magical beings. You are not offering them scraps. You are offering them full citizenship. The alpha is skeptical. They have heard promises before. So you provide a demonstration. Using the resources of your inner circle, you have already secured a large supply of aconite. You present them with a dozen vials of perfectly brewed wolfsbane potion, enough for their entire pack for the next full moon. It is a gesture of faith, a down payment on your promise. You leave them with a final thought. Voldemort sees you as beasts to be unleashed. Dumbledore sees you as a tragedy to be pitied. I see you as soldiers to be empowered. When you are ready to be treated as equals, you know where to find me. The seeds are planted. An army of the night is now considering your banner. Your next move is far more delicate and dangerous. You must treat with the goblins. Your research has taught you that the history between wizards and goblins is a long, bloody tale of mutual distrust. The wizards see them as greedy, treacherous creatures. The goblins see wizards as arrogant, untrustworthy thieves. The core of their conflict stems from a fundamental difference in philosophy. To a wizard, when an item is purchased, it belongs to the buyer and their descendants forever. To a goblin, the true ownership of a goblin-forged item remains with its creator. The wizard is merely renting it for their lifetime. Upon their death, it should be returned to the goblin nation. Wizarding inheritance law is, to the entire goblin race, a system of institutionalized theft. You request a meeting with a powerful goblin chieftain, the head of a clan that controls a significant portion of the wealth in Gringotts. You do not go to the goblin liaison office. You go to their territory, deep beneath the streets of London. You go alone, a sign of respect and courage. You know they will be suspicious of a wizard, especially a Slytherin. You begin not by making demands, but by acknowledging their grievances. You speak of the 1612 rebellion, not as a bloody uprising, but as a legitimate protest against being denied representation on the Wizengamot. You speak of the laws that forbid goblins from carrying wands, a clear and deliberate policy to keep them as a subservient class. You speak of the Sword of Gryffindor, a goblin-made masterpiece, and how wizards have passed it down as their own property for 1,000 years, a constant, glittering symbol of their cultural appropriation and theft. The goblin leaders are stunned. No wizard has ever spoken to them this way. They have only known condescension or fear. You have shown them that you understand their history, their culture, and their rage. Having established this common ground, you present your proposal. It is a treaty, not a demand for allegiance. You propose a new world where wizarding law recognizes goblin concepts of ownership. In your new order, all goblin-made heirlooms will be returned to the goblins upon the owner's death, unless a new leasing agreement is negotiated. You propose the abolition of all laws restricting wand use for non-humans. A goblin with a wand, you argue, is a powerful ally. You propose something even more radical. A joint economic council with equal goblin and wizard representation to oversee the treasury. You are not asking to control Gringotts. You are asking to become its partner. In return, you ask for two things. First, access to the vast wealth within their vaults, the capital required to fund a full-scale revolution. Second, the legendary craftsmanship of their smiths to arm your new army with weapons and armor that can withstand the most powerful ministry curses. You are offering them everything they have fought and died for in centuries of failed rebellions: respect, autonomy, and power. You leave them to debate. The idea of trusting a wizard is anathema to them. But the idea of reclaiming what is rightfully theirs is a temptation they have never been offered before. Finally, you turn to the giants. Your approach here is different. The giants are not a sophisticated political entity like the goblins. They are a broken people, a race driven to the brink of extinction by wizards, who hunted them for sport and drove them from their ancestral lands. They are a force of nature, of raw, primal power. Voldemort recruited them with promises of slaughter. Dumbledore sent a half-giant and a half-giantess to try and reason with them, a gesture that was both insulting and naive. You travel to the mountains, enduring the harsh conditions. You seek out their Gurg, their chieftain. You do not come with pretty words or complex treaties. You come with a tribute of powerful, enchanted steel, forged by the goblins who are now secretly in negotiations with you. You come with a show of respect for their strength. You speak their guttural tongue, which you have taken the time to learn. You speak of revenge. You tell them the story of their own people, of how wizards, fearful of their power, declared war on them. You point to the pathetic, dwindling number of their clans. You tell them that the wizards will never stop until they are all gone, until they are nothing but a scary story to tell children. You offer them a simple, brutal pact. Join you, and they will no longer have to hide in the frozen peaks. They will be able to reclaim their lands. They will be able to walk in the sun again, not as monsters to be hunted, but as the rightful titans of the land. Your enemies will be their enemies. The ministry aurors who hunt them will be the first to fall before their might. You offer them not subjugation, but liberation. The chance to be giants again. You return to your Spartan apartment in Wizarding London a changed person. You are no longer a solitary idealist. You are the leader of a burgeoning coalition. You have the ambition and intelligence of Slytherin, the ferocity and numbers of the werewolves, the wealth and craftsmanship of the goblins, and the raw, destructive power of the giants. You have built something that neither Dumbledore nor Voldemort could have ever conceived of. Voldemort built an army of sycophants and monsters, bound by fear. Dumbledore built a network of spies and idealists, bound by loyalty to him. You have built a true alliance of the oppressed, bound by a shared desire for revolution and a coherent vision for a new world. Your ideology is no longer just a theory. It has a pulse, it has teeth, and it is hungry. The plan is not a single brutish assault, like Voldemort's clumsy attacks. It is a symphony of chaos, a multi-pronged strike designed to decapitate the ministry and shatter the illusion of its power in a single night. You have named this operation Serpent's Dawn, and you are its conductor. It begins not with a curse, but with a whisper. Your network of disillusioned ministry insiders, cultivated over years of quiet observation, makes its move. Using carefully placed imperious curses and whispered threats, they disable the ministry's internal warning systems and sow confusion among the watch wizards. The beast is sedated before the first blow even lands. The first public move is economic. At precisely 6:01 p.m., as ministry workers are heading home, the goblins strike. It is not an attack with blades, but with balance sheets. Every vault in Gringotts is sealed. All Floo network connections to the bank are severed. A simple magical notice appears on the pristine white marble doors, addressed to the wizarding public. Gringotts Bank is temporarily suspending all services and freezing all assets pending a renegotiation of the ancient treaties with the Ministry of Magic. Panic is instantaneous. Wizards and witches across the country suddenly find themselves cut off from their life savings. The economic heart of their world has stopped beating. It is a declaration of war far more terrifying to the pure-blood elite than any dark mark in the sky. As the financial shockwave ripples through the nation, the second wave begins. Under the cover of the ensuing twilight, your werewolf legions move. These are not the slavering beasts of ministry propaganda. They are disciplined soldiers, each having taken their wolfsbane potion, granting them the cunning of a human mind within the body of a wolf. They do not attack civilians. Their targets are strategic: the homes of key aurors, ministry department heads, and Wizengamot members. They don't kill, not yet. They deliver a message. Windows are shattered, wards are torn down, and a single black arrow, fletched with raven feathers, your chosen symbol, is left on each doorstep. It is a demonstration of terrifying reach. It says, "We know who you are. We know where you live. We can get to you whenever we want." While the ministry's elite are paralyzed with fear in their own homes, the third and most brutal wave is unleashed. At the stroke of 9, a time when the ministry is mostly empty, save for a skeleton crew of security, the giants attack. They do not apparate into the atrium. That would be too subtle. They are brought to the surface streets of London, shielded by powerful concealment charms until the last possible moment. Then the charms are dropped. Muggles scream in terror as two 20-foot giants, clad in crude but effective goblin-forged armor, rise up from the shadows and charge the visitor's entrance, the innocuous red telephone box. The flimsy structure is obliterated. The giants tear a gaping hole in the very fabric of the ministry, smashing through enchanted walls as if they were drywall. The sound of their roaring and the crunching of stone and metal echoes through the grand atrium. The golden fountain of magical brethren is smashed to pieces, a symbolic destruction of the ministry's false narrative of harmony. The aurors on duty are brave, but their stunning spells and disarming charms are like pebbles against a mountain. They are scattered, their morale broken in seconds. The giants are not there to conquer the ministry. They are there to announce that it has already fallen. They are a weapon of psychological warfare, a living siege engine. Now, with the ministry's leadership isolated, its finances frozen, and its physical defenses breached, you make your move. You lead your inner circle, your cabal of elite Slytherin strategists and duelists, through the breach. You are not a cackling maniac. You are a general taking possession of conquered territory. Your forces spread through the building, a methodical and chillingly efficient operation. The Department of Magical Law Enforcement is your first target. The handful of remaining auras are met not with a chaotic mob, but with a disciplined phalanx of your followers, protected by goblin-made shields that deflect all but the most powerful curses. The fight is short and decisive. You make your way to the Wizengamot chambers, the seat of their corrupt justice. You stride to the very center of the room, the place where they condemned Sirius Black without a trial, where they tried to break Harry Potter. You raise your wand, and a single, powerful, sonorous charm booms throughout the building and, through pre-placed magical amplifiers, across the wizarding wireless network, hijacking every broadcast.